I'm Justin Brady, and one of the most fascinating aspects of product design right now is what I'm kind of calling, I mean, maybe there's a better name for this, or maybe I'm not really coining this phrase, but what I call purpose products. I would say my Remarkable tablet's in that category. I would say there's a lot of stuff starting to be in that category of like purpose products. People seem to be shoving off like multi-purpose products. They don't like them that much. One of my favorite purpose products is actually these little Sleepbuds that I use to go to sleep every night. There's a huge backstory of why I use them, but I'm actually really pumped and kind of starstruck today to be joined with Charlie Taylor, the co-founder of Ozlo. And they make these Sleepbuds. And there's a wild story behind this that founders and CMOs need to pay attention to on how to connect to audiences. But first of all, Charlie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
So there's this crazy backstory, but let's go backwards a little bit. I want to talk to how you connected with an audience. You did a Kickstarter that was wildly successful. You raised some money that was successful as well, but you had some super interesting challenges in this path. So for those that don't know the backstory, there was a product at Bose called the Sleepbuds, and they were going to discontinue it. And you and your team broke out of there and saved the product, brought it back, much to the relief of the masses like myself, who thought, well, from here on out, I'm just not going to sleep anymore. Great. And so you guys resurrected this product that I very much love. So obviously, thank you for doing that. We're all indebted to you. But when you were all internal at Bose, clearly they did not see the value of continuing this product. They had first generation, second generation, and they're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to continue with this. But you and your co-founders saw an ecosystem potential. You saw the potential here. What do you think the breakdown was there?
Yeah, I think, look, Bose is not only a massive company, they're a global top 50 brand. And so when they were looking at kind of what they are in the future, I think they chose to just focus on the things that really, really mattered, right? I'm wearing my Bose headphones. I don't really go anywhere without them. I think most people don't. And sleep is so important to them, right? It was something that they truly believed in, but it was still an earlier time in the market. And I think to grow as a sleep company and a medical company would be my words, not theirs, is different than being to maintain as a consumer electronics company. And if your goal is to remain, at least in my opinion, the global leader in audio, it doesn't necessarily translate fully into sleep. Doesn't necessarily mean they didn't believe in the product. And I think that was, in their continued support. We work with them. We've licensed various things from the folks at Bose. But building as a smaller independent, particularly as a startup, while there's a lot of challenges, it also in many ways is a lot more freeing than when you're really at the expectations level of a global brand, right? We're not in Cadillacs and I think even fancier cars now, right? We get to kind of invent who we are, and that gave us a lot of freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because when I'm saying you guys saw a major ecosystem and huge potential for this, it almost sounds like they did too, but they're just like, we may have tapped into something bigger than we even realized, but it's not our core business. Is this kind of where the discrepancy lies?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Where, and you could see this with the moves that Bose is making now, I think, at least in my opinion, really reemerging as, not your grandfather's brand, but a relevant brand for today. And I think in that conversation, distracting from that consumer side into what is really a health and sleep business didn't really make sense at the time. I'm not sure that would be the opinion today. Whereas what we saw it as, yes, we're an audio business, but we saw the opportunity not in audio, right? We're not this world famous audio brand who invented noise canceling. We're now our own thing. And we saw sleep as kind of the one opportunity that not only is it the most important thing in our opinion, it's having a moment, right? I think Bose saw that moment before really anyone else, right? This is why they had the original products. But didn't get to really get the top, right? This wasn't an Andrew Huberman talking about sleep in all of his podcasts, Mark Hyman, right? All these folks weren't talking about sleep yet, but it was getting there. And we saw that coming and thought, hey, there's a really not only big market opportunity, but unlike any other product that, my team and others have worked on, this was a product that, the Sleepbuds, that had an audience like yourself that were so passionate right? In a very different way than people are passionate that my audio sounds better than your audio because of the headphone. They are passionate because it changed their lives, right? This is a product that for the first time in years helped them sleep, or for many folks, more importantly, help them sleep with their partner again. And that type of passion you really can't make up. And so we saw that as this really, really great opportunity to really build an anchor around a broader sleep business.
Hey, can we take a time out just for a second? Trust is at a premium, especially as AI slop makes its way everywhere. And podcasts are a great way to scale relationships and trust really quickly. They're the relational extension of your brand, and they're great core content of which SEO, like search engine optimized content, comes off of, and a bunch of clips for all your social media platforms. I build podcasts for iconic brands. I train hosts, I help them with strategy, and I help them focus on actual results. If this is something you want to work on, if you want to build your own media channel for your company, I guarantee you can do that. DM me, email me, get in touch. Let's build this thing. You mentioned the market opportunity, and people are talking, Huberman's talking about sleep. Everyone's talking about like better sleep. We have Brian Johnson, of course, talking about this all the time. Major movement there. And that's what you're tapping into. I want to back up a little bit. I want to ask about how you promoted it. And of course, you've identified a lot of opportunities for how you're promoting this and getting it in front of the right people. But this is kind of, and maybe there's actually a better term for this, but I lump this into the category of like purpose products. Like I mentioned, the Remarkable. I would also put like minimal phone in there. I would put Ozlo Sleepbuds in there because most people have like this thought, or some people have this thought that I just want one product that does a bunch of different things. And that's kind of how companies think. But companies, like consumers, don't think that way. They want almost devices dedicated to like specific use cases. So do you see the rise in like this purpose product kind of movement? Do you see this? Is this a fair way to kind of put the Sleepbuds in that category?
Yeah, I think there's two types of categories, right? There's the value product that I'm looking for, and the premium product, I'd say, and both have different presets, right? You know, for us, you have to really go single purpose if your goal is to maximize sleep. If your goal is to maximize headphone sales, right, then the idea is get it as cheap as possible, as close as you can to maybe good enough for that purpose, but you're not quite there. And so I think for a lot of products, that works really, really well. You look at kitchen appliances, most of them are wide ranging. They fit a lot of utility. I can do a lot of things. But if you want to do a very, very specific thing correctly, purpose-built is the way to go. And that's kind of the line of a premium product. For us to be our size, which I won't take my headphones off, but, you're talking about smaller than a dime, right? These are very, very tiny. And most importantly, we are thinner still than anyone on the market, right? And that Z-axis when you sleep on, that means you have to take a lot of things out that you might otherwise do if you were trying to go and build, say, a conferencing tool, right? We don't use microphones on the Buds for calling, which is why I'm wearing my Bose headphones.
Right.
I could do that. I could add that. I could have more utility in the product. It's not super expensive, but it does increase the size, right? It does increase the battery usage. And when you start taking those things, that means that if you're going to focus on sleep, I care about, can you sleep in it all night comfortably? And does it last all night with the audio? Which means you have to pull back and do other things, right? So to provide a higher value, a higher premium experience for sleep requires us to be much more singularly focused. And I think the market is going towards that. There's a fine line, though, between a gadget, like kitchen is a good example again of that, right? Do I really need a special spatula for a very specific thing? Probably not, right? But when you're talking about a very specific thing, right? Like that's where that line comes in, right? And with sleep, this is not, oh, I want it for the 5 minutes of activity, even working out, right? The most fit folks in the world maybe work out 1-2 hours a day, right? If you're athletes, maybe you're 4 hours a day. All of them sleep, particularly if you're working out 4 hours a day, 8-9 hours, right? Like sleep is not just another thing you do. It's the most foundational thing you do every day, how you start and end. And so having a purpose-built device really made sense for us in that world, but it also allows us to focus a lot more broadly in sleep than, say, audio or headphones or things like that.
You said something very, very significant for founders and especially comms people and CMOs. Extremely significant. Just a really quick reset in case I glossed over it, and correct me if I'm wrong. There was Bose made some Sleepbuds. They did a version 1, version 2. They discontinued them. Your team broke out of Bose, went independent, saved the product, bought the licensing, launched them independently as Ozlo. Of course, you made some adjustments and dialed the products in. Right. I think I've got that right. But I just wanted to touch on that in case people are like, wait, what's the connection here?
Yeah. So, this product was started. Sure. Absolutely. This product was started, the original Sleepbuds, by one of my co-founders at Bose, Brian Mulcahy, employee number one. It's kind of the story always told, where he saw really early on. Bose? Well, employee number one of the sleep business, not employee number one of Bose.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. Crazy.
So, it was really his brainchild, right? This is something that he needed at home, and you could see this in our videos, so I won't speak for him.
I need it at home.
And he saw how life-changing it could be, and how audio, we could talk through this later, but audio isn't just this entertainment thing. Audio provides so much promise to help people in a way beyond just listening to music and having phone calls. And so they recognized this. They built the first product, had some market challenges, but, really was beloved. When they released another one, same thing, really beloved. I think, again, a little early, the right product, the right thought process, but maybe the timing was a little off, and obviously broader things in the market. We're talking about COVID hitting, right? There's a lot of things going on there. And so we saw that opportunity, my other two co-founders all at Bose in various divisions, but all of us love this product and kind of had this idea that, wow, if you can just focus on a sleep business, right? If the business was about sleep and not broader corporate priorities, you can do some really, really cool things. And luckily, we were able to work with a team there, and we had made the decision that we would potentially do our own thing in sleep, and we're able to convince the folks that, hey, this is the right home for these assets. And I think you could read the official transfer of assets over, and we structured a deal, and we're able to pull it out and relaunch it and rebuild it, a year or so later.
Yeah. So for those paying attention, Charlie, you are very, very dialed in to the customer you serve. It sounds like your team, before even leaving Bose and coming over and creating Ozlo, was extremely focused on a potential customer profile, customer ID. Have you guys written out like a vision statement, a mission statement, a purpose statement? So like tell us about who this audience is and what that mission is that drives you, because it sounds like you're very dialed into them.
Yeah. So look, we have certainly a broader vision and more eloquent statement, I'll say, and I could pull it up, but really we help you sleep. And that is everything we do across, when you use our app and we look at what we're building next, when we add features, when we look at design, everything does it achieve the final thing, which is to help you sleep? Now we use audio in that. So part of that is, how can we help you sleep with audio, right? So part of that, saying if your dogs are barking or partner's snoring, what type of audio do we need to deliver to effectively mask that? But at the same time, and I took it out of its sleeve, this little bud, this tiny bud, and if folks can't see, we're talking millimeters here. It's less than 2 grams. How do I deliver 8 to 10 hours of audio? How do I let you stream what you want to, but turn it off when you don't? There are decisions that have to be made that sound crazy, where we can get an entirely different level of performance or more features by going less than a millimeter higher on the Z. And you can look at competitors, right, that they'll do that. But what we found in our research is that even a 0.5 millimeter, and and we're talking extremely, extremely, extremely small. Yeah. To the naked eye, you're probably not going to see it unless you were compared. It caused discomfort when sleeping, right? So it would be the most comfortable thing when you're wearing. 0.5 millimeter, because the placement in your ear when you're sleeping, especially on your side, really, really, really matters. And we can't be comfortable to everybody, but we're trying to be as comfortable to as many people as you want for the purpose of sleeping. On the other hand, when you're going back to purpose-built, I would argue we have the most comfortable headphone on the market, but that means people want to use it to work out. They want to use it for phone calls. And so they ding us because they can't, or they get upset
Oh.
because they can't, but it's not built for headphone, for working out, right? These are different decisions that you would make. And so we knew our entire mission was, does it help you sleep better? And if not, why are we doing it?
And I would argue from a comm standpoint, that's one of the reasons, not the reason, but that's one of the reasons you guys were such a breakout success, is because of that early focus. I see a lot of founders and a lot of CEOs that really struggle with that focus. They want to be they want to be everything to everybody. They take those calls and emails and they say, yeah, you know what? It is the most comfortable thing. We should go into workout stuff. But because you guys are dialed into your audience and you know who they are, do you find internally you are all turning down what look like a bunch of opportunities like all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's the siren call, right? Workouts and fitness is such a, people love that, right? They work out every day. We wear headphones every day. It's a very personal experience. And when it comes to branding, it is really hard, right? And I'll use Aura as an example. Aura went massively viral because they had photos of celebrities wearing, I don't have my ring with me, but wearing their ring. They're out, they're working out, they're walking. Nobody's wearing our product and getting photographed. And so when you look at what people are looking at, the idea that, hey, maybe we can use it for workouts, and I can tell you why you shouldn't wear it for workouts, and we're just not built that way. It's fine if people do. It gives us opportunity to speak to a different customer, to maybe have different types of PR and different videos, but it doesn't help our core mission. And so certainly internally, there's always been conversations of, can we expand horizontally, right, with this one product into the field? And really what we've always come down to is no, but we can expand vertically on what we can offer through the product in the lens of sleep. And if we were to go horizontal, it's a different form factor. It's a different product to get there, but this product has to be hyper-focused on sleep. And I think to what you said, that's how, to maybe our surprise, right, without a big corporate engine, we've really been able to cut through a lot of the noise in this market, right? This is a big market, a lot of people spending money. We've been able to get the recognition and awards and PR. And it's because, I think at least, that we've hyper-focused on the customer. Everything that we do is on our sleep customer and not the potential of some boogeyman customer out, that maybe we can get, which is a very easy thing, particularly as a founder, to say, oh, I need to get more revenue, right? I need to find another whale and make my market bigger. We found that making your market bigger really dilutes your brand. It dilutes the ability to actually go after what we want to matter, which is sleep.
Yeah, and that's the hardest balance to get for a lot of founders and a lot of is to find the balance of, you don't want to go too broad, you don't want to go too niche, because you alienate customers both ways. You need to really dial into the customer. It sounds like, I love that. Just, we help you sleep. It's so great. Like, vision statements and mission statements and purpose statements are extremely obvious, but only in retrospect. Getting there is actually very challenging. So I applaud you on the simplicity, but also the sheer focus and will on that purpose statement. You mentioned some PR challenges. You mentioned branding challenges. You mentioned that Brian Mulcahy, when he was leading this, but maybe it was just a little early. People just didn't really care as much as they should about their own health and sleep. So maybe you're at the right moment right now. I would argue you most certainly are. But you also mentioned that you have some PR challenges. Like, no one's out there wearing these at the gym getting photographed, and no one's talking about them. I talk about them because I'm kind of a freak, and I'm like probably a cult-like follower of Ozlo, but I'm probably unique. I'm sure people listening to this like, you've told me about these stupid things. Would you shut up about them? But how did you mentioned, you kind of touched on the fact that, you got some PR wins. You got, I think it was around 1.5 million Kickstarter, somewhere in there you raised. How did you convince people with, in a way, zero brand recognition? You can't say we're Bose. You guys all left Bose. You're a new company that bought the license. I mean, that's a confusing message, or it could be confusing. So how did you do the campaign? How did you do reach out? How did you get the attention? What was the magic sauce there?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be this guy, but a lot of it was luck, right? I think we had, we can't use another brand for many reasons, right? But it's not helpful. We did have the trademark, right? So Sleepbuds is our trademark, and so we weren't
Right.
starting from nowhere. We had a pretty good foundation, and we decided to go to Kickstarter. We're venture backed, right? Kickstarter was awesome, and the team there, if anyone can have the opportunity, the executive team there, they will hands-on come and help you build your campaign, which is super helpful. But we weren't using that to raise money, right? If the Kickstarter made $500,000, $1 million, $1,000, probably would be an issue with investors at 1,000, but we were still ready to build. And so then it was, well, how do you actually create noise? And we've had a lot of good breaks, but a lot of that was following kind of systematic approach, right? Which is not spray and pray and hope that people see it. Before we turned on ads, which obviously everyone loves ads, before we turned on ads in Kickstarter, I think we had done nearly $500,000 or $600,000 in revenue.
Wow.
And we did not have a wide email list, right? There wasn't, in Kickstarter, you could do a lot of things. You can have a, pre-launch and deposits. We didn't have any of that. And so that was working with a really awesome PR house we've used called Launch Squad, if you're around them. But we were in with journalists, and we had this really distinct advantage, which is incredibly unfair, but it's folks like you. We happen to have a lot of journalists who were folks like you, who this is the product they travel with, and they knew the Bose story, they knew the Bose product, they knew challenges and wins that they've had previously. And so we were able to get in touch with them and give them early product where we said, hey, don't tell anyone you have this. It's definitely not for sale yet, but why don't you come play with it, feel with it, sleep with it? And that really allowed us to launch. I think with TechCrunch was the exclusive launch, but to have a pretty big push. And when you leave the market, and this is, I think, what happened when the product was discontinued and we took over, you didn't leave the need for the product. And so there was this huge gap of folks who had already been searching for Sleepbuds, have been searching for a sleep solution. And so we were able to fill that in by very quickly getting as much PR and press out, building an organic funnel, right? I mean, that's step one. And then really just hoping it worked out with the brand, right? You don't really know whether the name's going to resonate. People are going to be upset, right? That these people are very passionate, particularly when they love a product. But yeah, a lot of it was let the product speak for itself. We happen to let folks do it early. And, even recently now, we're sold on Goop. Gwyneth Paltrow has been a big fan of the product and has mentioned us across a handful of podcasts that are, we would never have that reach. We don't have the budget for someone like that. And we don't have the capacity to be on these podcasts with, 30, 40 million, nothing on you, but the prices on those guys. And so we've really been blessed.
We're not Joe Rogan for those that don't know. Yeah.
No. And if he wants a product, we're happy to let him. No politics, whoever, if it helps you sleep, we're happy to give you
I'll have our people
bud.
reach out to their people.
It sounds great. But yeah, when people like it, right? I mean, I think the Acquired podcast, people were messaging us that, the founders are talking about you. We didn't know. And so if you build this, because going back to the core mission, if you build a product that does the thing you say it's going to do, you try not to overpromise. You try to be very clear with your mission. For us, it's always been science-backed. We think that in audio, it can get very woo-woo very fast, right? And so if you back a product that works with a science that endorses it, with a brand you can trust, you can, I call it luck, but you can break through, right? Because the right folks like yourself find the product, value it, and, this is not I made, your life a little easier. If I can help you sleep, I could be your most important thing in the day, and that can speak through.
Yeah, and so what you did is you nailed the messaging and focus first, then went wide. And the reason that's extremely important is because if you go wide and you don't have the we help you sleep, you don't have the focus messaging, what happens is you just go wide and you confuse people further. They see you, they don't really understand what they're like. You hit the... let's say you hit a big podcast with 30 million people or whatever, and you got lucky. I don't think it's luck, by the way. Then people hear the message and they just don't really understand, like, wait, are you another headphone company? You do sports, you do sleep. I already have headphones. No thanks, right? So if you go wide first and you don't have your messaging nailed, you actually risk alienating people and pushing them further away. And then the next time you come around, you say, hold up, guys, we've focused our mission now. We're just Sleep. They're like, yeah, I've heard about you before. You guys are unfocused. That they don't say that out loud, but that's how they think. And so you mentioned that you kind of had some luck, and sure, there's some luck involved. But really what I'm hearing you say is that you were highly strategic and you used something that maybe looked like a disadvantage to your advantage. Here's what I mean. You had a brand that was difficult to talk about, but what you did is you made a choice. You made a PR choice. Cool shout out to Launch Squad there. And you actually reached out to people who you already had relationships with. You mentioned strategic, and this is so brilliant. Your systematic approach was to reach out to people who already had an experience with the older version of the product and to maintain that relationship. This was your strategic approach, and that is how you got some of those big PR wins, and you were able to convert that audience from Bose over to Ozlo. Is that fair? Fair assessment? Fair summary?
That's exactly it, right? We knew folks who, even if they haven't been friendly in the past to the product, right? Not all reviews were positive.
Right.
But almost every review spoke to the need for a product like this, right? And so we went where we already knew the audience of us, which it's a reporter or influencer, whoever it may be, is looking for something like this. And can we give them our latest and greatest and show them, hey, this is the missing promise that you thought you wanted, right? This holds the missing piece. You know, for us, the biggest thing, and I'm sure you remember this, the previous product did not allow you to stream your own audio, right? And that was, again, there was a very important reason for that. It has to last all night. It has to do these things, right? The technology wasn't quite there with some innovations in Bluetooth, and we won't go super technical. But now we were able to say, hey, listen to whatever you want, right? Listen to a podcast while you go to sleep. And now when you fall asleep, switch over to audio, private alarm in the morning. It was a much more compelling story, but it's easier to get in the room with the folks who have already been looking for the solution and trying to make them your advocates versus someone who's net new, where I have to jump and try and explain what we do first and then how we do it. And that's just going back to, narrow, not wide. Right, you're kind of, if you shoot the field too wide, you haven't talked to anybody, right? The allure is you've talked to more people, and I think you know this, but in the world, particularly of small brands and startups, that's not the case. If you go super wide, you kind of don't really get anyone, and you risk alienating the folks who really care about sleep. Because if I really care about sleep, I probably don't care as much about the fitness headphone or the focus headphone, right? Whatever it might be, but I do want the sleep.
Yeah, and you basically said you found something that these you basically found a point of trust. Like they already trusted that old product, or they already trusted what it could be, and you started there, which is a brilliant approach. Probably our final question, but one of the interesting things that stuck out with me, you guys wanted to discuss this show before. And that's actually quite unusual for our show. I don't normally discuss shows ahead of time, but what really stuck out to me is you and your team are extremely sensitive and dialed in. It goes back to dialed into your audience. You don't want to say the wrong things that could be misconstrued. You're very careful about how you message. Tell me the difficulty, because sleep is very deeply connected to people emotionally in their personal lives. It is deeply connected. I will say, when I heard news that Sleepbuds 2 were going to be discontinued, I was legit pissed off because I am kind of dependent on them to get sleep. I've slept like crap my whole life. And then when I developed tinnitus, so my sleep got worse. And then when I started using the Bose Sleepbuds, my sleep actually got better than before I had it. And so I was legit concerned. It was an emotional, I would say an emotional thing for me, being discontinued. Do you have a delicate balance? Are you very precise? Are you very careful with how you market and how you message your clientele?
Yeah, I mean, look, I personally am not very precise, and that's kind of the founder privilege. And I can say whatever I want. But We look at it in a couple ways when we go to talk, and we aren't on a lot of podcasts. I think we stay away, and we try and stay away from things that don't speak for the product on one hand. And so is this why I think, and this, and why I said, hey, actually, you use the product. I run our customer support team. I have an awesome team who leads it. I no longer have to take those phone calls, but we have a customer base that is really, really, really passionate about the product, right? I was on the phone yesterday. Please don't call our number, but people find it. And occasionally I will call back and try and help folks debug or figure out the issue. And, we'll find folks, they've hit the wrong button. It happens all the time with any product, but they're not, oh, let me go Google, I'll fix it, right? This is a conversation with a woman, I assume in her 60s or 70s, had hit the wrong button, accidentally unpaired the product. Her problem wasn't, I need to repair the product, right? And this is what I would do with a headphone. It's not pairing. Her problem was, I cannot sleep, right? I've been so addicted. This past month has been the best sleep I've ever had. How do I do that? And so when we communicate, we don't want to increase expectations. On the one hand, on the brand side, we always want to under-promise and be able to over-deliver. On the other side of that, in the world of audio, and sleep, people are very quick to make claims. And it makes us very uncomfortable, particularly as a hardware manufacturer. When you make sleep hardware and we make sleep software, you can kind of say in the US regulatory environment anything you want about sleep software. But when you start doing it with sleep hardware, you start approaching as medical advice and a medical device. We have aspirations to build, and I know we've talked about it. I won't go into detail, but it helps some of the things you've mentioned you have, and using audio in a clinical way. And so that means that we're always balancing these two worlds of, is it the right, not necessarily precise, but the right communication on a brand side for how consumers will look at us, but also, is it something that is helping move our goalposts forward on a clinical and potential future that's more regulated? And you have to balance those two. And so when we have communications, we try to always make sure that we are talking about the brand in the way we want to talk about. It's very serious, fun, but serious. Like, we believe sleep is not something that you should write off or is really a joke about. Like, getting better sleep is extremely important to folks. And at the same time, we want to not make promises in terms of performance and things that will improve that don't really make sense in our kind of long-term vision.
Wow. I love we don't overpromise. We underpromise. We want to make sure. Yeah, I love that. I love how, again, you're dialed into the audience. You're even dialed into the partners you work with. You're dialed into podcasts and media you do to make sure that people are kind of aligned with that vision and mission that you've set. It's such a brilliant strategy. You understand on a very deep level, an empathetic level, who your audience is. And so bravo. It's a great story. And I hope CMOs, I hope founders are listening to this. Charlie Taylor, the co-founder of Ozlo. Congrats, by the way, on Time Magazine's Best Innovations. That's huge.
Thank you.
If people want to reach out to you, learn more about the company, how do they do that?
Well, they could always email me. You can find my email online. I won't dox myself there, or LinkedIn. But if you reach out to support@Ozlo Sleep and ask about me, it will get sent to me very quickly. But you can find us at ozlosleep.com. We're on Amazon. We're on our site. We're now in Best Buy. We're in Walmart. We're available globally, at least the EU, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the US. But yeah, we love the product. Black Friday is going to be a fun time for us. Maybe wait till then. But yeah, if you have trouble sleeping or your partner snores, I obviously could not recommend a better solution.
I can't either. Not a paid endorsement, by the way, for those asking, or those thinking, is this a paid? No, it's not. It's a great product. It's a great story. And I appreciate from a comms PR standpoint how you are so dialed in. Charlie Taylor, the co-founder of Ozlo. Thanks for coming on the Justin Brady Show.
Thanks for having me.